Well, hello there, everybody, and welcome to a brand new edition of On to the Next One. Yes, we are back. The matchmaking crowns have returned following UFC 306 Noche UFC, which went down last night at the Sphere in Las Vegas, Nevada. Was it the greatest sporting event of all time? Was it the greatest combat sporting event of all time? Maybe experience-wise, potentially, if you were there live. Quality of the card, maybe a little bit of a different judgment, but we have two brand new UFC champions, and we will discuss what could be next for those two champions, the two former champions who lost their titles last night, along with other notable names from Saturday's card. I am Mike Heck, and joining me as always, as you can see, the co-host, the co-matchmaker, the Prince of Positivity, and gosh darn, he's my best friend. Happy Sunday to the great Alexander K. Lee. AK, how we doing?
Happy Sunday to you, my best friend. Happy Sunday to everyone watching. It was a long night. It was a late night. Even if you weren't us and you were just watching and not working, I think the card ended at close to 2 a.m. Did it not? The card itself?
It sure did.
And then
it sure did.
If you are like us and you stayed up to, of course, watch some post-fight stuff. Now, thankfully, there wasn't like a crazy long wait between the first fighter coming out. I think it was Diego Lopes, first fighter coming out, and like the end of the card. So, because we've had some cards where there's been like huge gaps between the main event and the post-fight press conference. So at least kicked off pretty early. But again, by early, I mean, yeah, like if you stayed for the whole press conference, you were on until probably close to 3:30 a.m. to see Diego Lopes and Dana and Valentina and Merab. So anyone who stayed up and you're with us, I applaud you. You guys are crazy and you guys are the best. And I'm so excited to hear your matchmaking suggestions, meaning you, Mike, and anyone watching.
Yeah, so how this is going to go is we will talk about each individual fight. We'll talk about all four fighters in the main and co-main event. We'll discuss what's next for them. If you guys have some suggestions for those individual fights that we discuss, throw them in. We'll chuck them up so you guys can see them on screen. And then we'll get through the rest of our picks. And at the very end, with however much time we have left before I have to check out of this hotel room, we will get your suggestions. We'll just go full wild card round and we will get after this thing. But before we get to that, AK, what was your thoughts on the Sphere? Did you enjoy it? I'm not talking about like the card itself, but just everything that was promised. Did it live up to the hype for you? How would you grade the viewing experience of Noche UFC, this big card at the Sphere?
I'm probably being generous for someone who wasn't there. If you were there, I feel like it was like a 10 out of 10, right? And again, I'm just going based on our own Jose's comments. Jose seemed very, very pleased with what he was seeing, very excited. And most of the media members who were there, I think, seemed pretty dazzled by it. So it must have been a 10 out of 10 in person. I'll generously go 8 out of 10 watching from home. First off, I do think I did see a lot of people making fun of it during the prelims, which is fine. They didn't do much of it with it during the prelims. The fact that they used that enormous, 40 bajillion foot screen to simulate rafters or scaffolding, was darkly funny. Like, it just shows you, because you don't want to distract the fighters. I understand, and you don't want too much going on in the background, especially until the big show, until like the main card actually started, and that's when they put on all the little mini movies. They had the kind of cool backdrops for the fighter intros and the fighter walkouts and the fights themselves. So all that stuff worked. I think all that stuff looked great. I will say, and I don't know what we expected. Like, I don't want to ding the UFC for this too much, but once the action was focused on the octagon, which is where we all want it when we're watching, it looked like a pretty normal broadcast. If you took a random screenshot of any of the fights, any of the actual fights, there's a very good chance you would not have known that this was at the Sphere, that this was at a state-of-the-art facility. I saw some people saying it was indistinguishable from like the UFC Apex. I get it. Yes. But there were some different angles they had to use, obviously, given the change in locale. So overall, I thought pretty strong presentation. Don't compare it to Dana saying it was going to be the greatest sporting event of all time. Of course, it's going to not be an 8 out of 10 if 10 is the greatest sporting event of all time. It was never going to be that. We know what the Sphere is. Huge screen, great sound. Probably that's the thing I think we're missing out on home. I think if you were there, the sound must have been incredible. I would have loved to have been one of those moving seats. As it was, like, I would try to time just like my shaking of my own chair at home with the punches, but it did not work. It just made my butt hurt. So I would have loved to have been part of that in person. I didn't quite feel FOMO I know some people do when they see these events. I think I never have, and I didn't on Saturday either. But I can't imagine anyone who was there, and I'll go as far as say anyone who shelled out whatever the most expensive ticket was, they're probably pretty happy with the experience. So I'm going 8 out of 10. I know I'm being generous. I'm sure the people who are going to hate on this fear, but I thought everyone worked really hard. And huge shout out to the Octagon girls and the designer of the Octagon girls outfits. Unbelievable. So cool. Such great use of it. I would shout out all of their names, but I think they used 8 different new Octagon girls on Saturday, and I cannot remember all their names, but big tip of the cap to them, and again to the designer, because that stuff looked freaking great.
Yeah, I thought it looked awesome. Like I really did. Even like during the fights, I thought it looked awesome. I thought it was just lit more brightly. There was just a different ambiance. The crowd noise was different. Like it just felt bigger, and just it separated itself. And like I said, heading in, the one downfall of all of this is that it's over, and that, you know, they're going to go to Paris, and that crowd is going to be absolutely on fire. And then that will be the big story of that event. And then UFC 307's coming, and then we're back to the Apex on the 12th, and again on the 19th. We're going to be like, 306 was so freaking cool, man. But yeah, I dug it. It was the best they could do to make the viewing audience feel like they were there. There are moments where I was like blown away by the graphics of it all, and I was like, wow, I feel like this giant meteor, this planet is gonna fall on my face right now. It just there was certain about like the drone shots, like I was actually getting a little dizzy with the drone shots, like the way they shot it. It was pretty wild. It was pretty wild. I hope they try this again, because I thought it was a really cool, it was a undertaking, probably like nothing they've ever done before, but they took a swing, man. And whether you liked it or you didn't, I think they deserve a lot of praise for this, because if you went down the street to T-Mobile, that Canelo fight sucked ass, and there was nothing special about that event at all.
I didn't think the fight was that bad. I thought
it was bad.
It was pretty one-sided. I mean, but I thought Berlanga was like spirited. I didn't think it was like, I thought that fight was, let me put it that way. This way. I don't want to necessarily say it was better than the 2 UFC main events. It was definitely better than Shevchenko Grasso 3. We'll talk about more of that later. Probably wasn't. I thought the main event of UFC 306 was still pretty compelling. Just because of more the inherent drama, not necessarily of, you know, what happened in the fight. So I won't say the Canelo fight was better than that, but I like that Berlanga was pretty game. He did get schooled. I actually had like I actually had a shutout for Canelo. I scored it 120 to 107. 100%. And I know that sounds like a terrible score, but sorry, I know that sounds like a terrible score for a fight, but I found it most entertaining. I guess I enjoy watching Canelo. I guess it's just like, oh, you get to watch him cook. I'm sure people would have liked to have seen a knockout. He probably should have been able to finish Berlanga. He didn't.
100%.
I know. I'm the prince of positivity. I'm probably being too positive right now, but I did not hate the Canelo fight. I would rank it again above the UFC 306 co-main event, below the UFC 306 main event, and well below several of the fights on UFC 306.
Well, let's get into it. Let's just start right at the top. We have a brand new bantamweight champion. Thy name is the machine, Merab Dvalishvili. He goes out and he beats up Sean O'Malley. Like, he beat up Sean O'Malley. He broke him a little bit. O'Malley had moments in the 5th round. I didn't hate the 48-47. I see some people in the chat saying like 48-47 is ridiculous. Yeah. Sean O'Malley had a case for winning round 3 because nothing really happened on either side. Just didn't. And I felt like O'Malley did enough to squeak that one out if he scored it for him. O'Malley definitely won the 5th round. Like, there's no case on earth where Sean O'Malley doesn't win round 5, because he had Merab hurt, had him in trouble. He just didn't have enough left in him to get the finish, because Merab just overwhelmed him. And it was a different sort of Merabing. It was a very patient one. He didn't shoot 30 takedown attempts. It was just, he timed him. He picked his spots. And when he got Sean down, he beat him up a little bit. He would let him back up, but he would just kind of do Merab things. But just it was a more different approach. I thought his stand-up was much better. And the most important question I had about this fight, AK, could he shore up the defense? Damn it, he did. He did. Outside of taking those body shots in the 5th round, he didn't get hit hard at all in this fight. He barely broke. He didn't even break much of a sweat. So Merab's the new champion. We don't even need to cue up the band. I know they're over there warming up. It's Umar Nurmagomedov. I don't care what he says about wanting Figueiredo. He ain't First of all, he ain't getting what he wants. Anyways, I don't think the UFC is overly thrilled with how everything went last night, especially with how that fight went. It wasn't the most thrilling affair. Neither was the co-main event. Dana White didn't have tremendous things to say about either, but it's Umar Nurmagomedov. There's no other way this doesn't happen, right?
Yep, great fight. Great fight to make. Umar was there. UFC did a good job. I assume they meant to they made sure to have him there and to showcase him. They showed him on the screen. They didn't do the in-cage confrontation, but he was there. He was there. They said, "Look, this is the next challenger. We're already hyping him up. He's undefeated. He'll be facing a champion. He's won 11 in a row. Style-wise, it's a perfect matchup." I think you and I and Jed and many people on the MMA fighting crew, we think that Umar is the future champion. And that's no disrespect to Merab. Like, I'm going to hate it if Merab loses and people go fails to get a first title defense just because he's fighting Umar. Like, he just happens to be running into a guy who has the potential, I think, to be the best 135er of this generation. That's how good I think Umar is. And it's just going to ignore all the stuff that Merab did, prior to winning the title. Listen, 11 straight wins. Just because only one of them was a title shot doesn't mean that the guy is not a worthy world champion. I mean, dominated O'Malley. Cejudo win is great. Petr Yan, a former champion. Jose Aldo, former UFC champion. Marlon Moraes, that was a great fight. He's been beating top 5, top 10 world title level guys for a long time. So even if he loses to Umar and never gets the belt back, I really hope people don't look at it and go, "Well, he never defended it." Blah blah. There's circumstances where you're just not going to be able to defend the title, guys, because you ran into a monster like Umar. Or maybe we're wrong, and maybe Merab, he's a big step up. I feel like for Umar from most of his competition. Corey Sandhagen, Umar's biggest win, but other than that, big gap between everyone else and Merab. So maybe Merab just beats him, and then I can't wait to see what we're saying Merab, because he's just been such an exciting guy. I think you have to be happy for him. Exciting, I mean, personality-wise, and his win streak. Maybe some of his fights I know people didn't love, but very good champion, very exciting. Mike, should we also, I don't know if you want to, people should know, of course, we're going to do the losers of the title fights as well. Do you want to do the boring co-main event pick as well before we get to O'Malley and Grasso, or do you want to keep going in order?
Yeah, it's Shevchenko versus Fiorot. I'm sorry. Right? Like, we're not doing the Grasso thing. Grasso can make any case she wants. It would have been probably would have been a good thing for her to show up at the press conference and state her case, maybe show a little chutzpah in making that case, but she didn't. Sean O'Malley wasn't at the presser either, which I thought was super weird. Yet he's showing videos backstage in a singlet, which was super weird. I was not a fan of that at all. So yeah, it's Shevchenko Fiorot. We can move on. I mean, good for Val. She did what she needed to do. This is the kind of performance we always kind of thought would happen in the first fight, where she would just kind of hulk Grasso around, and that's pretty much what she did here. So yeah.
I don't mind seeing the fight again someday. I keep talking about retroactive thinking. I hope this stink bomb of a fight does not make people go like, wow, that trilogy stunk, because the first fight was really good. The second fight was great. And yes, the third fight has left a horrible taste in our mouths. Grasso, I kind of understand why she didn't go to the press conference. She looked really demoralized in that fight, like from maybe after the second round. Like she just looked so defeated. There was no fire. There was barely even frustration. The commentator was trying to say she looked frustrated. Yeah, frustrated, but also like resigned to like, oh well, I'm not gonna be able to do it. It was so strange. And I'm not saying Grasso is the most like fiery personality, outward personality anyway. But when you're down like that on the cards, you would like to see a little bit more. You had no expectation that she was going to have her Leon Edwards 5th round headshot moment. Like, it just didn't feel like it was coming. She just looked very, very, very down. So I don't know what's going on. Maybe something personal, maybe an injury, maybe no excuses, just had an off night, just got lost to a better fighter. That's certainly possible. But yeah, really, really sad to see it go out like that, because I thought this was could have the potential to be a great trilogy. As it is, two really good fights, one absolute stinker. As for O'Malley, who I guess we'll talk about in a second, Mike, I kind of understand why he didn't go to the press conference, because he is a guy who's very much in control of his brand, right? He doesn't. If you're him, you're telling yourself, I don't need to give my time to the UFC and to the media. I am my own media. If you want my thoughts, go to my social media, where you can see me doing this hilarious, wrestling skit. Listen to my podcast, Timbo Sugar Show, this week. There you'll get my thoughts. I think he feels no need to show after. And he's not a great press conference guy either. We've talked about this, press conference or media day guy either. It's really not his specialty. I think he's a good personality, but I don't think that's really his specialty. So I agree he should have shown up, but I completely understand what he did. He's controlling his own narrative here.
Yeah, I just, to me, if you're a guy that the UFC is, putting their dollars behind and put you in this big spot and had you as sort of the face of this event, you show up and kind of take your lumps. That's just it. The tweet was everything cool, like, overhyped, but underperformed or whatever he said. But you just show up, you answer a couple questions. You don't have to stay there for an hour. Just go in there, answer like 5 questions and get the hell out of there. Put Merab over as a guy who just beat you, and that's it. Like, it just looks so much better. And Jed talked about this in the post-fight show, and I completely agree. Say what you will about Conor McGregor, like him or not. Conor will talk all sorts of noise heading into a fight, but when he loses, he shows up. He humbles up. He answers all the questions. Like, he does Chael Sonnen did the same thing. Talked a lot of noise, kept the same energy on the way out. You don't see that. Izzy, same thing with the DDP fight. Like, he didn't have to show up after getting stopped. Showed up. Put DDP over. Said nice things about the man. Like, that's what fighting is, especially at this level. So, I mean, it's up to him. You're right. He's going to go on his show and it's going to do a whole bunch of views and all that stuff. But it is what it is. Congratulations to Merab Dvalishvili. He's the new champion. And now let's go to O'Malley, AK, because I see a lot of suggestions on here already. I think this was super easy, but I'm curious to see where you went with this.
I hope when you're easy, you don't mean Henry Cejudo.
That's the one and only answer.
Barf.
I will say this though. This is if they were like, hey Mike, who should Sean O'Malley fight next? It's Corey Sandhagen. Like, that's the fight I would book for me.
Sure.
But the UFC is not going to book that fight. They're just absolutely not going to touch that fight. Why? Because I think Corey Sandhagen would win that fight, and that's bad for business. I think Sean O'Malley could beat Henry Cejudo. I think he would beat him like 8 out of 10 times, especially where Cejudo is right now in his career. And I think it's a good enough name, and I think the build would be weird and silly enough to like make Sean look like a baby face through all of this. Like, Henry Cejudo can make Sean O'Malley look like a baby face to every sort of MMA fan at this point. So I think this is if I'm playing for the Otno point, it's Henry Cejudo. This is what they're going to do.
I'm not going to play for the Otno point. I have a pretty strong F Henry Cejudo and never give Henry Cejudo what he wants policy. People know this from the day of his comeback. Well, we had both been strongly against it for the longest time. You had dedicated many hours of a heck of a morning time to saying, please don't give Henry the title shot in his comeback. It's fine. They decided to do it. It was a really good fight. Henry, you could argue he beat Aljamain Sterling back then, but he didn't. He didn't win. Okay, the scorecard said he didn't win. He didn't win his next fight. He's 0-2. He hasn't won a fight in where are we at now? 7 years. Where are we at now with Cejudo? Clearly still a high level guy, but I don't understand. Like, we don't need to keep giving this guy big fights just because he doesn't shut the hell up and because he was a champion many years ago. Sorry, his last win 4 years ago. My apologies, the Dominic Cruz win. It'll be close to 5, I bet, by the next time he actually steps into the cage. So no, I don't want to give him relevant fights anymore. I don't care. Henry Cejudo, go fight someone. I don't know, outside the top 10. I know he'll never do that. He won't sign up for it, and he shouldn't because it doesn't make sense. But also, like, what do we do with this guy? I'm tired of giving him big fights. I don't want to give him big fights anymore. Henry Cejudo can go away. I went in a very weird direction. This is clearly not going for an Otno point. This is a magic wand pick. This is me trying to make something happen that almost definitely won't happen. But we keep talking about O'Malley being compared to Conor McGregor. We've done it. Other fighters have done it. Chael Sonnen kind of went on a bit about how O'Malley has surpassed McGregor as the bigger star. But I think we've also noted, like, McGregor's rise was so unique and his ability to step up in every, like, major moment. And O'Malley did this several times. The fight with Petr Yan was really exciting. It could have been more definitive, but he got the win there. Of course, knockout of Aljamain Sterling and the UFC immediately releasing that on YouTube for free was fantastic. So he was getting there, right? I think he was still like 2 or 3 big performances away from not even getting to McGregor level, but at least getting to that A-level tier of fighter fame. But he hasn't been able to follow that path. Now, can we put him back on a similar path, Mike, coming off this loss? What about, Mike? What about if we matched him up with one of Conor McGregor's greatest rivals. What if he fought Jose Aldo after Aldo beats Mario Bautista at UFC 307 October 5th? I think O'Malley should have those Twitter fingers going. He should call Aldo out in a month, assuming Aldo wins, which I will assume because I'm an Aldo fanboy. So I want to see that happen. I would have picked Corey Sandhagen as well, but I think I matched up Corey with Dominic Cruz at some point earlier this year, and I know that fight's never going to happen, but I'm still holding out hope. So considering I consider him occupied, and I don't want to give Henry Cejudo anything, Jose Aldo, Sean O'Malley in 2025.
So I love this pick. I would pick Jose Aldo to win this fight. But here's the other thing that I just don't, the UFC for some reason, they just hate Jose Aldo. They don't like him. They booked him in the worst match-made fight in the history of the UFC. And I know we're talking a lot of years. Them booking Jose Aldo against Merab Dvalishvili in Salt Lake City is promotional malpractice. It is the worst piece of business I've ever seen. How can you do that? Give the man the title shot. You book him at altitude with Merab. Just awful. And now you're burying him on the prelims of a pay-per-view event? Like, what are we doing here? Now, I understand that the UFC graphics team, if there's one thing that was real bad last night, it was the UFC graphics team because they got so many things wrong.
What do you mean? Whatever do you mean?
Oh, you mean the wonderful appearance of Kendrick Lamar sitting next to Turkey Al-Ashir?
What a get! I was like, I didn't even know they knew each other. I thought he only hung out with boxers. That's weird. I guess he's hanging out with Kendrick Lamar now.
Apparently, Natty Ice is fighting Viviane Araújo for the second time this year.
Got to run it back. Got to run that one back, Mike. UFC 209.
And apparently, Anthony Smith and Dominic Reyes are fighting at MSG when they clearly are not fighting at MSG. Like they were just so bad, just so awful. Yeah. So many things wrong. It was crazy. So we'll reserve judgment until we get closer to the card. But like seeing Jose Aldo like buried so deep on the prelims, even against Mario Bautista, is insane. I would love to see that fight. But the UFC is just not going to give Jose Aldo that opportunity. Jose Aldo versus Corey Sandhagen would be fun as hell. That would be real fun. But we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out.
Bantamweight, just keep moving. We need no delays here. Got to get that Umar Merab fight going. All the other fights that are booked, play. I want to see. I see some people asking on Figgy or Jan for
that's the fight. Just book those two dudes.
Yeah,
Figgy and Jan. Let's
exactly.
go.
I want them to fight each other. People are saying like, why can't they get one of these fights, one of the top two guys? And I'm like, no. Let them fight each other, and then boom, winner, impressive performance. There's your guess what title shot.
We talked about what's next for Sean O'Malley. Let's talk about what's next for Alexa Grasso because this is the kind of performance from her that made her such a big underdog at UFC 285.
Yeah.
Why Jed went all in on Valentina Shevchenko because she just got hossed around in there. It was a perfect game for Valentina Shevchenko. There's a couple like submission attempts that were, there's the Jessica Andrade perfect game. And then there's just a 25-minute perfect game. And it wasn't all that thrilling. And we'll never go back and rewatch that fight. But Valentina did everything she needed to do to stifle Alexa Grasso. And this was the one fight that I compared this to was I covered a Bellator card during the COVID when there's no people in the arenas and stuff. And I watched Douglas Lima defend the welterweight title against Yaroslav Amosov. And that's exactly what this reminded me of. Douglas Lima getting up and going to his corner after every round and just dejected, just beat. You could just tell, like, I can't stop the takedowns. I can't get up even when I get taken down. I've lost the belt tonight. And I think, and that's kind of the sense you got from Alexa Grasso throughout this fight. I'll go first here. There's a lot of options here. I almost pivoted and threw in Natty Ice, but I'm not going to do that because I have Natty Ice fighting the Rose Namajunas Erin Blanchfield winner. Let's give Macy Barber her shot. Let's see what she can do. I like it. And it's kind of like the only name that I haven't used yet. Not named Natty Ice. Now, if they do Natty Ice versus Alexa Grasso, I ain't going to be mad at it. I just don't think Alexa Grasso is going to be fighting anytime soon. We probably won't see her until April, May 2025 would be my guess. And Barber's had some health issues that she's had to deal with as well. So we may not see her until like the early second quarter of 2025. So I think timeline wise, I think this works out pretty well.
This is nothing to do with my pick, but let me ask Mike. If by some chance Manon and Shevchenko gets booked sooner rather than later, let's say just probably not December. I would hope they would get that Valentina would get some time off, but let's say December, maybe January. Let's be optimistic, say January. Do you think Natty Ice has to fight one more time, or do you think that if she has the luxury of waiting, let's say they could sort of promise her a title shot by like April? Do you think that she's done enough, or do you think that's impossible? Do you think that you need to see her fight again?
I think she needs Erin Blanchfield to beat Rose Namajunas.
Okay. Yes. True.
If Rose Namajunas beats Erin Blanchfield, they're going to do Valentina Shevchenko versus Rose Namajunas.
Yeah.
As quickly as possible. Now, you can't skip Fiorot here.
No.
That'd just be ridiculous.
No.
There is another option, though, apparently, because I didn't see this, but apparently Zhang Weili has said that she wants to move up to 125 and fight for the flyweight title, which is friggin' crazy, dude, which would be nuts. And I don't want to see that because I want to see Tatiana Suarez get her opportunity. I want to see Verna Jandiroba get her opportunity. Unless she vacates the strawweight title, then I'm okay with it. But I just don't know if she does that. So, yeah I think a lot would need to fall into place for Natty Ice.
We have worthy challengers in both divisions. I honestly have been in no hurry to see Zhang move up, and I get it. I'm sounding kind of boring here. To see two legends fight is never a bad thing. I think by the time our rankings come out, number one, number two women's pound for pound fighters in the world. But man, there's so many good contenders I want to see get shots, so I can't go that way. You mentioned the Blanchfield, Namajunas pairing, which is coming up. I would like to see the winner of that fight Grasso. I think I know if Rose wins, like you said, she probably gets the next title shot after Manon. But I guess it depends how Rose wins. If Rose somehow dominates Erin, which unlikely but possible, I guess, then I could see her not having to fight again. I'm sure she would call for the title fight. I'm sure she is known for taking time off. I'm sure she would not want to fight Alexa Grasso. But I really want to see that fight as well. Talking about, again, two top pound for pound fighters, top 10 pound for pound fighters. I think Rose and Grasso would be amazing. And Erin Blanchfield, I'd be very curious. I'd be very curious to see. I know grappling apparently is Grasso's weakness, but I feel like she's done better than this. I mean, this just isn't what happened to her in the first two Valentina fights. So I believe there's a better version of her that could definitely beat Erin Blanchfield. But I'm curious to find out. So give me one of them. Because I've matched up Natty Ice and Macy Barber, but otherwise Macy Barber would make a lot of sense. So Blanchfield or Namajunas for Alexa Grasso.
AK, I consider myself a man of integrity, an honest man, one that admits faults when faults need to be admitted. And boy, oh boy, do I have to admit one right here. Thanks to our friend Daniel Edwards. This is a bit of doo-doo. I didn't slap a 2 on this bad boy, and I was wrong because this fight happened. I totally forgot this fight happened 3 years ago, but it did, and Alexa Grasso won it. But I still think this is a possibility. I still think it's possible. Hey, if Natty Ice has to fight Viviane Araújo twice in a year, I'm certain we could do Alexa Grasso versus Macy Barber twice in 3 years. So
it is
that's
a 2.
That was
totally forgot. Doo-doo. Share your doo-doo with me, my best friend. Totally forgot. Shout out Daniel Edwards. That was a good call. Good call. Yes. So Grasso and Barber too. Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to Diego Lopes. The story of Diego Lopes, there's going to be a 30 for 30 on Diego Lopes in the next 7 or 8 years. And I'm going to watch the premiere of that bad boy because what this man has done after losing on the Contender Series and losing other fights before getting his shot in the UFC and taking Movsar Evloev to the limit, and just everything he's done since then, getting finishes and just being fun, and the hair, the Dan Ige situation, which made him a made man. And then he goes in there and fights Brian Ortega, who only loses to guys who have held UFC championships. And he's unkillable. And Diego Lopes almost got him out of there in that first round. Ortega stayed in there and was tough, but then Lopes almost finished him again in the final 20 seconds of this fight. Diego Lopes is a madman. He's very popular. He's over. I think if there's anybody who got a huge boost from this card more than anybody else, I think it's Diego Lopes, even more than Merab or Valentina Shevchenko or anything like that. This is a huge performance for him. and the options are aplenty. They could throw him in a title fight if they wanted to. I don't think they will. I don't think you could shoot him over Volkanovski. My dream scenario, how I would do this, is pay Volkanovski a bunch of money to fight Diego Lopes. Whatever he would make for a title fight, just give it to him. I want to see that fight. I think that fight makes all the sense in the world. I don't think Volk's going to take that unless they slap some sort of title on it. So what I went with is there is a fight coming up in 3 weeks' time, a little less than 3 weeks now. Aljamain Sterling versus Movsar Evloev. I know Lopez and Evloev have fought before. This is one Lopez certainly would want back. I don't think Evloev would turn it down if it's a number one contender fight. We do Lopez versus the winner of that because I kind of feel like that's where this division is right now. But man, no matter what they do with Diego Lopez, I don't think it would shock me all that much.
I can't do it because I think I've picked Movsar a couple of times to just I just want him to get a title shot. I understand why
I picked him to be champion at the end of this year.
Oh man. And again, he should, in fairness, get a shot. If it wasn't for Max just disintegrating Justin Gaethje and creating so much hype around himself. And of course, having a much, much bigger, more marketable name than Movsar Evloev. Movsar probably would have gotten his shot, but he is a victim of circumstance here. And I'm not blaming the matchmakers. I'm not blaming the UFC. If you polled 100 fans, Steve Harvey, on who would they rather see, Max Holloway or Movsar Evloev fight Ilia Topuria, it'd be probably 100 out of 100 would say Max Holloway after that BMF title fight win. So it sucks. But I don't want to see Movsar face Lopez again just yet. I know it was a few fights ago, but it wasn't that long ago. Last year, right? May of last year. So the Volkanovski position I really like. I almost went that way. And rankings wise, it's the only thing that makes sense for him because Ortega was a top 5 guy heading into this. Beating Yair helped him hold on to that spot. If Yair had just beaten him, we could have dropped Ortega so far down the rankings. He had so much inactivity, but he beat Yair, so he's got to be in the top 5 still. Or you're dropping both Yair and Ortega out, but at some point, the MMA math just doesn't math. So the only guy who's above him that's free, technically, is Volkanovski. I have Diego 4th now in the UFC rankings. So I want to go that way. Instead, I'm going with a really weird choice and a very, very tough fight for Lopez in a tough situation. But I also think this other guy might be one fight away from a title shot. So I hope this wouldn't muddy the waters too much. But I think I'm picking Lerone Murphy to beat Dan Ige at UFC 308. And then I would love to see Lerone. I know. I'd love to see Lerone and Lopez fight. Because I don't think
there's no way Diego Lopez is going to fight Lerone Murphy right now.
I think he will. I think
Are you
Lopez
crazy?
I think he'll fight anyone.
You're out of your mind.
I don't think he's a I'm not going to fight this guy. I don't see him having the attitude at all.
I think at this point, after you beat Brian Ortega, I think you kind of have to have that attitude. Do you not?
I think after Lerone beats Dan Ige, he's done enough to earn a title shot. Not that Dan Ige is like a top 5 guy. I mean, the resume wouldn't be as strong, but I think Lerone is so good. And again, if you're Lerone after you beat Dan Ige, maybe it's time to fight top 6, top 7 guy. But I think that guy would be Diego Lopez because I don't know if Lerone is getting some of these other guys that are ranked higher than him. It might be him. So I just think the timing is going to work out, and I don't think Lopez has the luxury of waiting for a title shot or getting the Volkanovski fight. I think he's just going to have to fight another contender, and I think that's going to be Lerone after October 26th. I don't love it. I actually thought Lopez was really hard to matchmake for just because of where his ranking is now. And
he's just so over right now, man.
He's
going to
get
a big fight.
He is.
He's going to get a big fight.
I think Lerone is a big fight.
If they book Lopez versus Lerone Murphy for like February, if Lerone beats Dan Ige, I will come on this program and say like, I should just take a week off because I'm not good at this, and you're the best at it that there ever was. So let's keep this going because another man whose stock rose tremendously is just an absolute madman. His name is Esteban Ribovics. We knew he was an absolute madman heading into this fight with Daniel Zellhuber, and boy was he. That fight was absolutely ridiculous. The first 2 rounds were the best 2 rounds of the night. And then the third round was the best round of 2024 and one of maybe the 15 best rounds ever in the UFC. This had Cub Swanson, Duho Choi vibes written all over it. These two just beat the shit out of each other. The third round was absolutely bananas. Both guys were badly hurt. Both guys showed tremendous heart and chin. It's absolutely wild. I don't know what to do with this man, AK. I don't know what to do. I think I've landed on somebody that I think would be really fun, but I just wasn't sure how high to go. If we just want to do a fun fight, I wasn't sure. So I'm curious, where did you go with Esteban Ribovics after this friggin' incredible showing?
Yeah, I had to kind of just hit the rankings up here and try and figure out who's booked, who's not booked, because yeah, it was an incredible showing. He's an exciting guy. I think he has the potential to be a spoiler. I think that might be his role at lightweight, until he strings together enough wins to prove me wrong and maybe be a top 15 guy. I think right now I view him as a top 30 guy, which at lightweight is incredibly impressive. That's not an insult. But I'm going to move him. I don't know if that's exactly where I have him. What I'm saying is I need him to move up closer to the top 30. And I think I need him to fight Guram. I want to see him fight Guram. Another guy who I feel like still has some buzz around him. I'd be very interested to see who would open as the favorite in that fight. I actually think Guram still would. I think there's just a mystique about him that Esteban does not have. But UFC has something here with Esteban. And if he beat Guram, if he finished Guram, that would be unbelievable. If he just beats him, though, now we're talking about maybe giving him a top 25 opponent, but I'm not there yet. I'm being a little conservative here with Ribovics. But how'd you go, Mike?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Friends
forever. No way, really?
Guram Kutateladze.
How did we do
That's
this?
the fight.
How did we do this?
That's the fight. Because that's the one.
How did we do this?
That's the one.
That's so.
I'm shocked. I'm stunned.
There's like 20 people we could have picked. How did this happen?
It's like the way you started talking about it, I'm like, ooh, we have a chance of hitting a Friends Forever here.
The band was getting a smoke after the first. Half the band was out getting a smoke after the first few picks. Like, we're not going to be needed today. And then I just saw them scrambling. The saxophone guy was scrambling.
The lead bassist went down to the lobby and got a waffle. He waited the 2.5 minutes to get the waffle that you flipped the thing over. And he put it on the plate and put the syrup on and everything. He's getting ready to take a bite, and he had to drop it to play the song. It's unbelievable.
Wow.
What a pick. Unreal. Well done, AK. We're good at this. Okay, you know what? I'm not as bad as I thought I was. That was pretty good.
Of course not. You're excellent.
Let's go to Ronaldo Rodriguez. Again, very fun fight. It's amazing that the two fights people complained about being on the main card were the two best fights on the main card. Ronaldo Rodriguez, O'Day Osborne was really fun. And Rodriguez wins maybe a controversial decision. The scoring was super with 29-27, where good old Lazy Boy was friggin' awful. As soon as I heard 29-27, I'm like, all right, O'Day won, because he almost killed him in the first round. And how you totally, it should have been a draw. If you're going to score 10-8 Lazy Boy in round 2, you have to give O'Day a 10-8 in round 1. So this technically should have been a majority draw. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. Ronaldo Rodriguez wins. I'm just going to get this out of the way. Josh Van. We're just going to do that.
We're so close. I was going to do the countdown 1, 2, 3 thing, but I thought that was, you know what? We got the one. I shouldn't be greedy. No, I didn't have Josh Van, but I definitely did think of, just match up the two flyweight winners from this card, because that fight will be incredible, as almost fun. All Josh Van fights are, and Ronaldo Rodriguez being quite a reputation for himself as well. I got a guy I have ranked one spot lower than Josh Van. I'm going with Jafel Filho. So I don't know what's next for Ronaldo Rodriguez. This is an insanely tough division to get into the top 15. Again, you have to fight guys like Filho, you have to fight guys like Josh Van, and any number of guys ahead of them. So keeping our eyes on this guy, very exciting. Many bonuses ahead for him, I'm sure.
Well, it's time for the wild card round, AK. That means we're going to select one fighter we have not match made for yet. We'll match make for him right now. It could be Daniel Zellhuber. It could be Brian Ortega. It could be anybody who won on the prelims. It could be someone from the women's bantamweight division, AK. It could be somebody from the women's bantamweight division. Maybe Irene Aldana, who got you 0 fantasy points last night, but that's neither here nor there.
Wow.
But watching Shaheen just tank last night was one of my favorite things of the entire year. I love this so much.
Shout out Shaheen, but, our dear former colleague, but still a member of this inaugural 4-team fantasy draft. Yes, he had Daniel Zellhuber, who did get points for a fight of the night.
Yep.
and the heavily favored Jasmine Jauregui, who just got upset big time.
She got dunzoed.
That had to hurt. We say, Mike, you are technically not on the board yet because you kind of backloaded, I think, your team, right? You had
except
no
for Alessandro Costa, who didn't fight.
I didn't bring, out of respect to you, I did not bring that up. And fingers crossed for you is rebooked before the end of the year. I don't see. Maybe he gets one of these guys. Maybe he gets Joshua.
I would hope he gets a ranked guy because he was already supposed to get a ranked guy. But that's not here.
You want those points? You want those points?
Give him Cody Durden. Let's go. Let's just get him a ranked dude. I love this idea, but
you have yet to log a point because you've got some big fights coming up. You did not partake too much in Vegas 97, and no fighters picked at all for 306. But yes, Merab delivered for me. Irene Aldana did not, but that's okay. We don't care about that, Mike. We don't hold that against people. But she's not my wild card pick.
Who is AK? Who is?
I'm gonna do something I don't usually do and go with a main card loser because this man's future is very intriguing. It sounds like win or lose, Brian Ortega was gonna move up to 155, right? Because technically he was fighting back in the rankings. I don't think a win over Lopez really would have pushed him that much closer in the title picture. I know that sounds unfair. Lopez beating him makes him like one fight away or no fights away from a title shot, but Ortega beating him does not do the same thing. That's how the fight game works, people. Sorry. So what do we do with Brian Ortega at lightweight? I want to remind people I made this pick at like 4 a.m. So I probably was not thinking straight. And I know I've pulled this card many times on this show. But I feel like we got to give Ortega a ranked guy. I feel like he has the name for it. I think we got to give him a guy who's got some intrigue behind the name and who Ortega could lose to continue his push to an inevitable title shot. I don't feel good saying this at all. I'm going with Brian Ortega versus Paddy Pimblett. I'm so sorry. I've been pushing, for the record, before anyone says anything, I had been pushing Pimblett and Chandler. I wanted Chandler to move on. I want to free Chandler of the McGregor fight, which he still somehow believes he is tied to. Whatever. Chandler is now officially booked for that rematch with Charles Oliveira. Good for both guys. Can't wait for that fight. So he is not on my matchmaking. He's now free in my matchmaking book. Screw it. Let's go, Patty, and let's go Brian Ortega.
You brought up the Michael Chandler thing. Let me just say this, and I know this man's manager is one of the very best in the business, and I'm sure conversations have already been had. I truly hope Armin Sarukian has put pen to paper on a contract to fight Islam Makhachev because let me tell you, and I've said this before, if Michael Chandler beats Charles Oliveira and then I see a face-off with him and Islam Makhachev at Madison Square Garden, I'm going to throw my friggin' camera out the window. Like, it's just what's going to happen. I will be so friggin' upset. The only other thing that would make me equally as upset is if Kamaru Usman gets a title shot after going 0-3 in his last 3 fights. That will really piss me off. It will really piss me off. However, I went with the man that underwhelmed probably just with the performance from the betting odds perspective. And no one knows this more than Shaheen Al-Shadi, the captain of the Shaheen Al-Shadi suckbag fantasy team. We're talking about Raul Rosas Jr., the 19-year-old. Goes out there, gets a win, a workman-like performance, I guess one would say. He did mention in some backstage interviews after the fight that he was hurt. He was thinking about pulling out of the fight. There are a multitude of injuries. He called for a ranked guy. I don't believe this guy is ranked, but I do think it's like a really good sort of next step for him because I think he could beat a lot of guys. Like I think there's certain guys in the top 25 he could beat. I actually think there's certain guys in the top 15 he can beat right now. So what I landed on, just to test him, because even if he loses, it's not the end of the world. If he loses this guy, it's not the end of the world. This might be a too big of a step up, but I actually would probably pick Raul Rosas Jr. to win this fight. I'm going Ricky Simone, okay? I'm going Raul Rosas Jr. versus Ricky Simone.
Ricky Simone. He called him out?
No, I'm just going with it.
He just said
okay. He called for a top 15 guy. But then he also called for 50 G's after that performance, which was like, come on, dude. What are you doing?
That was
there's just certain times where you just got to leave the 50G thing alone.
That was a canned speech if there ever was one. And you know, listen, he's 19 years old. All right, you gotta prepare what you're gonna say ahead of time. He's pretty comfortable on the mic, but hey, again, like I said, if you're speaking in public in front of millions of people, you're gonna have some things like, oh, I gotta make sure I hit this point, this point, this point. Clearly, asking for 50 Gs was gonna be one of them. I guess he thought he was gonna run through every Lang, which he really didn't. And yeah, bad time. Don't ask for 50 Gs, guys. You can cut that part out of your speech if clearly you don't deserve it. But a win is a win, Mike. And yeah, I like the Ricky Simón pick. Yeah, not currently in the UFC's top 15. Obviously, he's on a bit of a slump. But certainly a top 15 talent, like a guy who was there not too long ago. And I think he'd be a huge test for Raul. I don't know if I pick Rosas to win that one.
Yes, Ricky Simón is bantamweight, as is Raul Rosas Jr. I see a lot of people matching up Raul Rosas Jr. as a flyweight. What is happening right now?
What is going? I think maybe this person's on your side and they're explaining it to the other person. I don't know. Guys, get it together.
Okay.
Cody Durden did just fight in a 135-pound bout with Matt
He
Schnell.
did, yeah.
That last second they did 135.
He took it on like 3 days notice.
Matt Schnell is a flyweight or was a flyweight. If he's retired, happy trails. Matt Schnell, I don't know, has not made it super official yet, besides, leaving the gloves in, but hasn't made a statement yet. Matt Schnell is a flyweight. Cody Durden's a flyweight. I don't think that makes a lot of sense. I'm sure Cody Durden would sign up for it. I'm sure he'd love to get a piece of Raul Rosas Jr., but I don't think that's going to happen. Do you think Raul Rosas Jr. fights again before the end of the year?
I'll say no.
He should try.
He's hurt. It's just the injuries. They concern me. He didn't look great last night. And my first thought after watching that fight was, I think he's hurt. I don't think he certainly didn't have his fastball last night, but he still won. And at the end of the day, it's all that matters. All right, let's go. Wild card round. Let's open this thing up. Get your matchmaking suggestions in. We're going to go for like 8-9 minutes. And then I got to get out of here and check out of this hotel. So shout out to Michael. Thank you for the super chat. Sandhagen versus O'Malley is the fight to make. Yeah, I love that fight. I just don't think it happens.
Very, very possible though. I think it's very possible, but I know why it feels like the timing's just a little bit off. It would be a shame if we never see these guys fight though. They need to fight someday.
Ortega versus Beneil Dariush, AK.
I had thought about that. I actually had thought about that. I just think that was a little too high. I don't know if Ortega, given his recent form, and the win over Rayer was great, I just don't know if he merits that fight. I also think Beneil is bigger than people think. Maybe Patty is too. Patty's obviously a big lightweight too. So
yeah, Patty's big. Patty's a big boy
too. So I guess I shouldn't. I say Beneil's too big, but I feel like Beneil's maybe too big and too good for Ortega. Because Ortega can. I like his chance to beat Patty. I don't love him to beat Beneil. I think Beneil can hurt him early, as happens to Ortega a lot, and kind of almost do what Diego Lopes did to him.
It'd be great. If he didn't get beat up so badly by Diego Lopes, Brian Ortega would be a fun return fight for Rafael Fiziev. Just saying.
I thought about that too, but I also don't I don't want to see him get his head spinning kicked in. I don't need to see that. Gerard.
Merab Umar O'Malley Yan 2 for 5 rounds. Okay. Sure. Shevchenko Fioro, Grasso Natty Ice, Lopez title backup. I don't know if he could do that. That's asking a lot of the young man after a hard fought battle, but maybe. Ortega versus the Moicano BSD loser. Ribovics versus Bonfim. Rodriguez versus Manus. Dumont Chiasson 2. Rosas versus Davy Grant. I thought about that one as well.
Dumont Chiasson 1 was a split decision win for Chiasson. Am I crazy? Let me look at that. And it was also some time ago. So actually, that's pretty smart matchmaking. Yes. Over 2 years ago, split decision win for Macy. This is 145 and Dumont missed weight. Goodness me. Yeah, one of the biggest stories of Dumont is her making weight at 135 twice in a row, Mike. My goodness. And hurt my fantasy team, but congrats to her. That was probably one of her best performances yet.
ZZ Biggs, deuces, peace out. Hardly knew ya. It's all good. Lopez Ortega was the best fight in the main card. Totally disagree with that. I thought it was third best fight on the main card.
Lopez Ortega.
You thought that was better than Zellhuber versus Ribovics? That's insane. That's an insane take, Jermaine.
It's a take. It
is a take. That's not even a Jed. Like Jed wouldn't even make that take.
He
wouldn't even try that.
Right. That would be. And it wasn't a bad fight. We're not saying it was a bad fight. We're just saying Ribovics versus Zellhuber is like a fight of the year candidate. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's probably gonna be in our top 5 for fight of the year. It's the round 3 is one of the best rounds ever in the history of the UFC. That's a wild take. I respect, I guess, but it's a pretty wild take. Was Triple C right about O'Malley's injuries?
I think in the sense that no fighter goes into the cage 100%. There's probably some, I'm sure there was some nagging injuries that O'Malley had or has had for some time. And Cejudo knows about them. Cejudo, if O'Malley was banged up at all, Cejudo's right. They trained the Arizona roots. They definitely know people who know the same people. I have a feeling there's no secrets between those camps. But I would be, again, I don't want to use that as an excuse for what happened. I think, again, every fighter goes in there with bumps and bruises. It just happens in this case that Cejudo probably knows what they were. Maybe he'll talk about it more on his podcast with Kamaru this week. I'm sure he's going to gloat and, again, campaign for that O'Malley fight. But I don't know if I'll say he was right about it necessarily being the reason that O'Malley just lost.
Yeah, and you can't use it anyways. You put pen to paper, you went in there and fought, you lost. That's it. That's why when Volkanovski fought Islam in the rematch and took it on short notice, you can't use short notice as an excuse. You can't go in there and be like, I'm going to kill this dude and knock him out in the first round. Yeah. You just watch.
Yep.
Sean O'Malley basically disregarded Merab as an actual competitor. He's like, I'm going to smash this guy. I'm going to make this look easy. And he didn't.
Yeah.
And honestly, just watching the way Merab fought, I think if Sean O'Malley was 100% and in the best shape of his life and had no injuries, I don't think that fight goes any differently. We all said it in the buildup. Like I felt really confident Sean O'Malley would catch him because Merab has been very hittable. And that was my biggest concern about the fight. And if you give this man 25 minutes, he's probably going to catch you once. But I think the other thing is, and I think this was spot on from like literally everybody, we would know exactly what this fight was going to look like after once the first round was over, we knew what this fight was going to be. Because either O'Malley has either knocked out Merab or is on his way to knocking out Merab, or we were going to get a Merabbing like no other. And that's what we got. So craziness, man.
But I was going to say, yes, I was going to say, Aljo's another example of someone who went in with injuries. And listen, it happens. You go in there. There's no way Aljo was 100% going to that O'Malley fight. There's no way. The turnaround
not a chance.
But was he so injured that he couldn't fight and so injured that he wouldn't, he had no chance of beating O'Malley? No, that's why he got in there. His game plan should have allowed him to beat O'Malley. He didn't. No fighter, any fighter who tells you they went into the octagon 100%, no injuries, is just not telling the truth. There's just no.
Alex Pereira broken foot and fought Yuri Prochazka on
this is how it is. That's the game.
Notice.
That's
and
the
then
game.
Killed him.
Yeah, that's the game.
It sure is. It sure is. All right. I think we're done because
guys, Mike has to go.
So.
You're not sending in fight picks. You're just chatting nonsense, and we love the nonsense chat. But yeah, Mike, you got places.
Shout out. By the way, shout out to fellow Burlington High School alum Matt Giacopo, Matty G, jumping in the chat today.
How do you know this person?
Went to high school with the man. I went to high school with the man.
How do you know it's him?
High school with the man.
How do you know it's not a different Matt Giacopo?
It's him. It's him.
Did you tell him to
chat.
Watch?
No, I haven't heard from Matty G in a long time. So it's good to hear from him. It's good to see him throwing out some takes. Much respect. Good to see you, Matty G. Good to see all of you. No show, obviously, next week because the UFC is giving us a rare week off. How about that? And then it's off to Paris, France for the card headlined by Renato Moicano versus Benoit Saint-Denis, which should be fun as hell because you know that Paris crowd always brings the ruckus. So that should be a wonderful viewing experience. I will actually not be covering that card. I'm actually taking that weekend off. We're taking my kid out of town for a couple days, which will be fun. And then after that, ladies and gentlemen, back to the craziness, back to the pay-per-view fight week schedule, back to the watch parties, back to it all. UFC 307, Salt Lake City, Utah. Alex Pereira about to set the tone for the marvelous Mike Heck All-Stars on my fantasy team. Like when he fights Khalil Roundtree, his third title defense. We're going to get a whole bunch of fun stuff on that card. That card is actually really, really, really strong. It is deep as hell, and it should be a lot of fun. And then it's back to the world's most famous Apex. And then October will wrap up with some early day pay-per-view MMA, UFC 308 in Abu Dhabi, the main event, the best fight on the books for the rest of the year, Ilya Taporia versus Max Holloway. and then all roads to MSG, all roads to December, all the way through Tampa, where they will close out the year. So this should be a fun little stretch, everybody. It should be a fun little stretch to close out 2024. And there you have it. AK, any final thoughts for the people?
First off, I want to say, again, first, thanks to everyone who tunes in to these post pay-per-view shows. As I said at the top, you guys are crazy. You must be exhausted wherever you're watching from, whether you're watching from here, whether you're watching from the UK, where you got up at God knows what time in the morning to watch the show. You guys are the best. You guys are the best. You're why we do this. And we love you all very much. Mike, I wanted to ask, you don't have anyone on UFC Paris either on your fantasy team.
Nope.
Mike, are you even playing this game with us? What do you do? Are you playing? You're playing. I feel like you're operating on another level here. I feel like you're not playing the game. So 307. 307 will be your first fantasy points of the season.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's it. I think that's the only one. I have so many on 308. I have so many fighters on 308.
You have amongst patience, sir. I am impressed. I'm impressed. I think some of my drafting was just like, oh, I want to know how this crazy experiment's going to work. So I got to get some like Vegas 97 guys on there. Got to get some 306 guys. But you didn't care about that. You're just all about the W. Nope. You didn't. You 4 months.
Except for Alessandro Costa. Except for Alessandro Costa, which was supposed to fight that weekend.
Which was a great pick. You could have gotten like 150 or 170.5 points right out the gate if he had just fought. Said Cody Durden just swooped in and just took him and gave him to nobody. But yeah, I also won't be working the 28th. I have a friend's very, very, very close friend's wedding. Mike, will you be working? Oh. Are you out that weekend?
I mean, that's the plan, but we might have to. Maybe we knock out. No. Maybe we knock out a Monday show. It's okay. We just knock out a Monday show after Paris.
I guess we'll see. Okay, guys, you might have a Monday show. I could also. I mean, I'm on Sunday. I'm not out the whole weekend. I'm on Sunday, I think. So I'll be.
There you go.
Yeah. I'm just not out that day. So you should guys be getting in onto the next one as usual. Probably myself and Jed Mishu, but who knows? Maybe we'll get a different guest host. But Jed, excellent matchmaker, and you can maybe see him.
Play of the watch party. It was a lot of fun. And AK, I have to sing a karaoke song and share it on social media because I got beat in the picks by Jed. So that should be fun. We have to figure out the songs. Send your submissions. So look for that on social media. Until next time, everybody. For AK, I am Mike Heck. Always remember the golden rule. Don't take this stuff too seriously. MMA is supposed to be fun, and we'll have more fun in a couple weeks right here on to the next one, the podcast. We love you.